Welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. With over 20 years of real estate experience and selling over 150 homes a year, Laura Sanders is the #1 RE/MAX agent in the state of Florida for 2021. Join us each week as we discuss how to make money through buying and flipping homes to renting versus selling and everything in between. To join the conversation, call in live 888-994-4995, Studio A.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders. I am your host, Laura Sanders. Every week we talk about something that helps you make a little money, save a little money, and helps you really to just navigate this crazy world that we live in. This week I want to talk about the Nar'S settlement. And the Nar'S settlement is basically talking about, do I have to pay the buyer's agent? And today we have Charles Esposito from JK Closings. He's an excellent attorney that we often use to help with our closings. And we're going to talk today about the Nar'S settlement and what that means for all the buyers, sellers, and the realtors out there. So you want to listen to this one.
Thanks, Laura. Good to be back.
Oh my God, you think like I just started yesterday. Alrighty then. Anyway.
That's all right.
Welcome, Charles. The Nar'S settlement is something that's being talked about every single day. Everywhere I go, people are saying to me, do I have to pay a buyer's agent?
Yeah. So the NAR, National Association of Realtors, recently was engaged in a class action lawsuit, as were a lot of brokerages, real estate brokerages, and the allegations in that were essentially that realtors were price fixing commissions and compensation. I mean, pretty much everyone that does real estate transactions for a living knows that that's not really the case, and that's not really true. Commissions have always been negotiable. Sellers have never had to offer a cooperating broker commission. But I think the two key takeaways from this settlement agreement is that in the MLS, the multiple listing service that you would list a property on for your seller, it will no longer show any sort of compensation for buyer's agents. But that doesn't mean that you cannot offer compensation. You just can't do it through the MLS. So that's one component of this. And then the other component is that buyer's agents are going to have to sign buyer brokerage agreements with their buyers. So if you're a buyer that's looking for a home, you can't just pick 5 different realtors and go around looking at homes with them anymore, which Laura loves. I like that too. And you're gonna have to sign an agreement. Just like a seller signs a listing agreement, a buyer's gonna have to sign a buyer agreement. And I think the outcome of that aspect of it will professionalize the buyer side of the industry.
So for the agents out there listening, right, to try to help to, and I know none of this is written in stone. Let's be very clear, everyone, that we're still navigating this, we're still understanding this, and whatever we talk about isn't in stone, but these are basic general understandings from reading articles, you know, hearing what like the president, you know,
and I read the settlement,
David Searle is talking
yeah.
about, in the settlement that you're reading. We're just trying to understand this the best that we can is that, let's just say a buyer calls off of one of our listings as an agent. We say to them, do we send them this prior to showing the property for them to sign?
For a buyer broker, so you're the listing agent on this? We would always recommend asking if they're working with a buyer's agent.
Right.
You know, if they're not working with a buyer's agent, then yeah, you should have them sign something, a showing agreement probably. You know, so there's a difference between the types of agreements that buyers will be able to sign. There's buyer brokerage agreements, which means, let's say Laura has a buyer sign a buyer brokerage agreement. If that buyer buys any property, then you're going to get compensated for it, whether you show it to them or not. If you sign a showing agreement, it's specific to a property. So I would probably recommend using a showing agreement for a listing agent. And you're talking about a scenario where there actually is no buyer's agent.
So they say. So if we ask
and
we
that's
say,
what the client is saying.
Yeah. So I always ask the question when they call and they say, I'm calling off of 123 Main Street. Okay, great. Are you working with a realtor? Or a lot of times I'll get texts that will say, hi, I'm looking at your listing at 123 Main Street. I'm not working with a realtor. I'm not a realtor, right? But it's funny, once I go and show them the property, then they're saying to me, well, there's no commission involved, you know, so we can take it a little less. Oh, so you're telling me you don't want representation? Is that what I'm supposed to say back to them?
Yeah, exactly. And this is all, everything in real estate is negotiable, which is another reason why this lawsuit was interesting, because on a day-to-day basis, we're used to all sorts of negotiations. You know, so the outcomes that people are predicting for this may not be what, let's say, the received wisdom is. We see all these articles in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal about this is going to lower home prices, this is going to do this.
Yes, Biden, that's what
I
it's
don't know
gonna
about
do,
that. I kind of doubt that, but we'll see what ends up happening. I think one thing, to your point, is that you're going to get buyers that are like that do sign an agreement with somebody else, and then they don't use that person anymore. They don't cancel the agreement, and then they're going to be on the hook for paying somebody that didn't even help them with that property.
But we're not going to get sued. Like, that's where I'm concerned.
Yeah.
That's where
A
I'm
lot of
concerned,
times
because here's the
brokers
thing, like,
are protected.
you know, I had a situation where I had a client that clicked on Zillow. An agent showed them, because it says, see this property now. It doesn't say, if you see this property now, you're obligated to that agent.
Yeah,
it doesn't give a disclaimer.
Zillow, in that case, I believe what they're doing now is adding a document to their forms that requires the buyer to sign an agreement with whoever shows the property for them. I think I saw that recently with Zillow.
Interesting. Yeah, this is very convoluted, very confusing. I'm sure that you have trainings that are coming up.
Yeah, we are actually not going to do any trainings until we see the documents that come out from the Florida Bar and Florida Realtors. So a lot of people like to jump the gun. The as-is contract, which is what we normally use for residential transactions, that's changed multiple times in the last couple of years, and we get to see a red line of it ahead of time, and then I can go around to different offices and do my own trainings and teach everybody about it. So we anticipate that happening again. We know for sure the contract's going to change. We know listing agreements are going to change, and we know that buyer broker agreements are going to change because they reference things that are outdated based on this settlement agreement.
Yeah, but the thing is like, if their buyer comes and they say, we're not working with an agent, right? Now they buy my listing. Are they able to come after that commission? Like, or is that between them and the buyer?
So the buyer's broker, purportedly the one that they said doesn't exist, they would be going after the buyer for that. And this is why it's important for buyers to understand what the new terminology is going to be, what documents they're going to be signing, and to be careful and make sure that they're using the right agent to actually search for properties for them. Now, I'm sure, just like all the realtors we work with, have dealt with an issue where you tour a person around a property and then they end up submitting an offer with a different agent, maybe a family member who might not know or be as knowledgeable as you are on a transaction, but you gave the buyer all the information and all of your knowledge, and then they had someone else submit the contract. That's not really going to happen anymore because you will have not shown them that property without having an agreement with them.
Right.
You know, so some of these buyers that aren't educated, don't read what they're signing, will probably sign agreements like that and then go look at properties without that realtor, thinking that they don't have to pay. So that's going to be an issue for buyers for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's so many questions here, right? There's so many things that I'm wondering, like, how does that translate, right? So we have people calling us directly, who's responsible to pay them, right? And they're going to only sign with us just to see that one property. It doesn't obligate them to pay us, right?
Correct.
But we, as the listing agents, are obligated to show that property because that's our obligation.
Yeah. So as a listing agent, when you sign a listing agreement, the seller is agreeing to pay you compensation, whatever that may be, whether it's a flat fee, whether it's a percentage, and then you, as the listing agent, are determining with the seller whether or not you're going to offer part of your commission or compensation that you already agreed to a cooperating broker. So a lot of people talk about 6%. We've seen, commission percentages be 6%, 5%, 4%, whatever it is. Let's say that you agree with the seller that the commission is going to be 5%. You can offer 2.5%, 3% to a cooperating broker. If a buyer comes to you without having a cooperating broker, the commission is still 5%.
Like it always has been.
Like it has always been. Correct. And maybe,
but the buyer is always,
right.
I'm telling you, CJ, these buyers, and I'm sorry guys, but they have always come to us directly thinking they're going to get a better deal.
Right.
When they should just be thinking, hey, I just want the property.
And that would be something that you negotiate between yourself, the seller, and the buyer if there is no cooperating broker. Just like if a cooperating broker came to you and said, hey, you're only offering 2% on this, I want 3%. Otherwise, we're not going to go under contract on this. Well, maybe that's something that you're going to negotiate, maybe not.
Right.
These negotiations are going to happen without the benefit of a cooperating broker compensation being offered on the MLS. So when a cooperating broker or a buyer calls you directly, they're not going to know what you're offering.
But let's say a buyer texts you, because now they're going to ask, because right now on Zillow and Realtor, it shows you the cooperating offer. It used to not show that, actually.
Right.
It's funny, but it shows that now.
Right, because they're not the MLS. So privately, whether it's, and Zillow is private, these companies,
Right.
you know, you're at RE/MAX, let's say RE/MAX has their own website that has your
Well,
listing
they're
on
not
it.
sure yet if that's going to be a violation, they said.
Well,
so
they're not
we're not
sure.
sure
Again.
yet. So we don't know yet if we can put. So let's just say you get an arbitrary text, not because people text all the time and they don't disclose who they are. And they're just asking, does 123 Main Street offer a compensation?
Yeah, you can say yes. It depends on what your listing agreement says, because you still have to write in the listing agreement whether or not you offer cooperating broker compensation.
But it doesn't allow that. I
In
thought,
the listing agreement, you
Oh,
can
in
put
the
that
listing
in there.
agreement.
Yes. So the listing agreement allows Laura to put the property on the MLS. The listing agreement will still have all of the compensation for the listing agent and cooperating broker. You just won't be able to put it into the MLS. So much like a commercial transaction, the agents will be talking, and the buyers and sellers will be talking about compensation for the agents separately and outside of the MLS. And that could be good and bad for buyers,
so,
and
but if
good
a
and bad
buyer,
for sellers.
but if a
depending on what
buyer
the
calls me
negotiation
directly
is.
to ask me and say, do I say, well, that's information for the agents to call us directly, or do we give that to buyers like out in the open, like?
Yeah, if it's a buyer directly and they're not an agent, I would say to them, well, why do you care? You don't have an agent. Or do you have an agent?
I don't,
you know?
I just don't know what the liability is. Like, it's like, because first of all, you never know who you're talking with. Like, I
Yeah.
get, people text all the time. And first of all, I hate text. I don't know who I'm talking with.
Yeah.
Like, people ask me the craziest things via text, and I don't know. So I guess let's go to a commercial break. When we come back, let's talk about like texting and answering people and not knowing who you're talking with. I mean, it's kind of scary. Most times I like to pick up the phone. So let's go to commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk about should we be answering these text messages and these questions. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Whether you're buying, selling, refinancing, or building your dream home, you have a lot riding on your loan specialist. Max Fish, a top 1% mortgage loan officer in the nation, will give you a same-day qualifying quote. Max Fish is committed to providing his customers with mortgage services that exceed their expectations. Ensuring that you make the right choice for you and your family is his ultimate goal. Contact Max Fish today at 954-729-6933 or max.fisch@nwmcorp.net.
At JK Closing Attorneys, we do all of the same things that a title company does, but with the benefits of being a law office. We can help with residential real estate, short sales, commercial real estate, refinances, 1031 exchanges, and FRIPTA withholding.
Contact JK Closing Attorneys today at 954-332-3111. Again, that is 954-332-3111.
You have been watching Making Money with Laura. For more information, contact Laura Sanders at 954-650-0827 or visit her website at lauraess.com. And now back to the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Making Money with Laura Sanders. I am your host, Laura Sanders. And today we're talking about the Nar'S settlement, and we're talking about what that means for the realtors and for the sellers and the buyers. And this is kind of, it's scary for the realtors, right? Number one, and it's funny because everybody's saying, oh, this is going to really eliminate a lot of realtors. Like, I hear that stuff all the time, don't you? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
like,
we have for sale by owners, we have these companies that are online, and hey, realtors are still going strong. And I think that's because you guys do a lot of work. We were talking, you know, before
couple
today.
Things. You were telling me one about a
contracts.
seller that came to you to write a
Yeah,
contract
we had a
for them.
seller just today. We had a seller that came to us to write a contract, and they had their own buyer, and they had no realtors involved in it. So we did it. We did everything we're supposed to do that we normally do on a transaction. And then the association called up the seller when the buyer applied and said, "Hey, your buyer's not 55. which is not something that we would look into. You know, everything was given to us to create
Well,
the
if
contract.
we wanted you to look into all that, you would charge
we would charge what
$425
realtors
a
would
net.
charge. Yeah.
No, you
except-
charge more because it's your
maybe
hourly's
more.
more than mine.
Right. As an attorney for an hourly rate, if you want me to do the work of a realtor,
That's
you're going to be paying
2.5–3%.
a lot more money.
Yeah, that 2.5–3% isn't
Right.
sounding so bad.
I mean,
right
how much
now.
legwork am I going to do with associations? That's your job.
So
but in this case,
what-
they didn't want a realtor.
Well, let's talk about that legwork, okay? Which I don't think the sellers understand what we do when it comes to a condo. And I'm an expert in condos when it comes to it, and it is stressful. Number one, I have to call the association. Now, you know, a year and a half ago, they changed the FAR contract,
Yeah,
and now they
we
talk
talked
about the
that,
12
yeah.
months of, the last 12 months of what's ever happened in the minutes meetings, the meanings of the minutes, right? So if any time in that 12 months, as you know, it says anything about an assessment, like, it's not okay to be blind to it. Like,
Right, you have to disclose
it. If you don't disclose it, then guess what? There's some legalities, and you're probably going to have to pay for something that wasn't even truly assessed yet because you failed to
Yeah, it's
disclose
possible.
it. Right.
Yeah, the seller has
Or-
to disclose everything that's known.
Or even just fighting with them to have you have to represent them to fight over that.
Yeah, and we deal with this issue with documents from associations all the time. Whenever you send me a contract to review and it's a condo and you have the listing on it, we have a whole big chunk of language that says, don't forget these documents. And oh, by the way, don't forget to check with them about their insurance for the association. Don't forget to check this. That's
Right, they need
my check
5%,
on our realtors
which is
that
what
we work
we
with.
have.
Yeah,
And
you're
I'm
doing all that
asking-
legwork.
Which most realtors aren't. So like when I have a buyer that comes to me and says, I want to buy a condo, right? And I'm like, oh. I'm like, if everybody would do the same checklist, right? Like, that's the one thing I feel like I could do a training for realtors and be like, hey guys, to make your job easier, to make my job easier, to make the seller's jobs easier, and to stop deals from falling apart, it's like, get the insurance up front.
Yep.
Do they have flood insurance? Are they in a flood zone? Because right there, conventional is out the door.
Right. One of the questions we ask now with condos is whether or not they have a 5% deductible or a 10% deductible on their insurance. Because if it's 10% deductible, you're not going to be able to finance that.
But then what you can go back with is now look at their budget. If they have over $500,000 in reserves, now they're violating one of the Florida statutes. So now you got to send the Florida statute to them. And coming from me, they're going to blow me off. But if I could get someone like you to send
Right.
an email,
And then we work in conjunction together, you know, to actually
you'll get it
that
done.
done.
And then
right?
now you can get back to that financing.
Yeah. So to the point about why are realtors, you know, everyone's saying that realtors are going to be out of the industry. Well,
Yeah, those
this is
ones
a
are gonna
great-
be out.
Yeah, the ones who aren't going to do the legwork are going to be out. The buyers, brokers that can't explain to a buyer why they should sign a buyer broker agreement are going to be the ones that are out. The people that know what they're doing are still providing value and are going to continue providing value.
Right. But the problem is like, for instance, like if I'm taking a buyer out, right, I know my value. The value though that I have, it goes way before even spending. How would you like to spend $500 on 4 inspections?
Yeah.
How would you like to apply to association that you have to be 55 to? Like, yeah, I could tell you these basics and you'll be like, oh yeah, I can ask those questions, so that won't happen to me. But there's little things that I know that other realtors aren't going to know, and I think that that's important.
And also your network too. A buyer or a seller is coming to you not just because of your knowledge and expertise, but also because of your network. Who are the lenders that you know, the inspectors that you know, the insurance people that you know, because they might have 1,000,001 questions about their property that might be different from every other buyer or seller that you've ever had, but you know somebody who knows the answer. But they don't know somebody who knows the answer. Otherwise, they would have had it already.
Where I had another realtor who came to me and said, hey, the buyer's like going to kill this deal because the insurance is just way too high. Okay, fine. So now we send them off to somebody else and they were able to get the insurance. It was like, so it's just knowing the right way to manage the deal and getting people on the phone to maneuver it, because some people say, oh, it's not insurable.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is lenders. We lose so many transactions now because lenders don't know what they're doing. When I see a file come in and the lender is from California, I like want to put everybody on notice,
don't
like, hey, this
understand.
is not going to close on time, just so you guys know. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I hate saying that, but it's
Well, they
almost
don't
100%
understand
true.
our condos.
No, I mean, we had a lender from Connecticut one time quote a buyer in Florida, not quote, an estimate of insurance on their statement at $2,000 a year for a house. It ended up blowing up the entire deal because the lender went to bind the insurance the day before closing and it ended up costing $11,000.
Yeah, but that's a realtor problem too.
That's a realtor problem too, absolutely.
I get a quote prior while I'm listing the house, right? And I give the basics, and I don't have it perfect, right? So of course there's like a disclaimer that says that this could be off a little bit because I don't have the 4-point or the wind mid,
right?
But I kind of have an idea because they really can't even. When other realtors ask, "What are the sellers currently paying?" It's irrelevant.
Yes.
You don't
just
know.
like taxes are irrelevant.
Their credit
based
could
on
be
the
better
purchase
than
price.
yours. They might never have had claims before. It's like it's dependent upon a lot of things. I mean, I'm not the insurance expert, right? We've got one in the house with us right now. They just walked in the door. But again, I'm not the expert, but I know basics, right?
Right.
So the questions I ask, and I can't tell everybody everything I do because then, what do you need me for, right? But just like I ask, like, what are you using for insurance?
Right.
I ask, what are you using for taxes? Because they sometimes just generalize it and people don't realize like what our insurance is, what our taxes are, like I can't go buy a house in North Carolina and understand.
Right.
I have no idea.
Exactly. And to the point about the buyer brokerage agreements now, okay, all of that information about every transaction, and then, however many people are the vendors that you normally work with, ask questions to and everything, and you're going to be referring your clients to a handful of those vendors. Now imagine if the buyer's agent was taken out of that transaction and the buyer had to do all of that, and they had to find all of these different people to ask the questions. And mind you, they'd have to figure out what those questions actually are to ask first because they're not familiar with the transaction. So that's why when people say, oh, this is going to completely revolutionize the industry, but there's not going to be a lot of agents anymore, I kind of doubt that because there's a lot of questions that only agents would be able to help buyers answer. And you're never going to be able to automate some of these things because every single transaction is
that
individualized.
Don't know, or the part-time agents, and it's like, so maybe you wouldn't go to your cousin's brother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
it's the same reason why a lot of agents are referral sources for me. I look up agents' numbers and I say, oh, wow, this person, Laura's doing, 35 transactions over the last X amount of months. I want her to send me business. And then I look up Joe Schmo. Oh, he did 1 transaction in the last year. But buyers don't look up that stuff. They don't know how many transactions an agent does unless the agent's telling them. They don't know what your experience is.
I can't tell you.
That's a problem.
Or they take their whole entire office, and they say like, oh yeah, we did this. And it's like, okay, somebody else did that, not we.
Yeah, that would be like you saying you did all of the transactions in RE/MAX. It's hundreds of thousands of transactions, maybe millions,
Yeah.
And you have a giant chunk of them because you do a lot of transactions,
I do.
Yeah, but there are agents out there that their very first deal, they come out of real estate school and they do one deal and it's usually a family member's deal and they have no idea what they're doing.
And they got lucky sometimes and nothing went wrong.
Yeah.
But like, let's take a house that has, I'll give you an example. Like I just did a deal where I think the roof was like it was a shingle roof, so it was 23 years old. So basically, I had them sign a roofing agreement in order to go into effect, so we could bind the insurance, and then the other realtor was like, I don't think any other agent could have gotten this deal done, because you have to be able to explain to your buyers. You have to explain what's going on, like,
right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. So I try to be very involved. So you're going to be doing some trainings. I know we're running out of time. So what is a good way for agents to contact you? Because obviously a good referral for you is agents that have buyers or have sellers that want to be represented. So what's a good number to contact?
954-779-5000. Text or call goes to our office. The text goes to all of our attorneys. And then we have a Facebook group for realtors. My Instagram account I showed you a video from. Those are all the resources we have available for realtors.
Yeah. So basically, I think the bottom line today is that, we really should just keep streamlined that sellers should be offering some sort of compensation through their realtor because it's part of marketing. It is marketing.
I think the
most
cost-efficient way for buyers and sellers to get under contract and for sellers to sell homes is to offer a cooperating broker commission. And I don't think that this settlement agreement is going to do anything to change that.
Right. Well, and if you're looking for a top realtor to help you either buy or sell a home, my name's Laura Sanders with RE/MAX Direct, and you can reach me at 954-650-0827. And you can also check out my website at laurassell.com. Thank you for listening every week. And until next week, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in for Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. To join the conversation, call us at the studio, 888-994-4995 Studio A, or contact Laura directly at 954-650-0827. Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. We look forward to seeing you next week.